Going all the way back to the first known cultures, man has pondered what the end of the world will look like. Among most of the ancient religions we find, of course, the flood myths. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Greek myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha, the story of Manu in the Mahabharata, and the Puranas from ancient India. And there are parallel stories as far as the Pacific Islands and the Americas. But this was the last apocalypse, the beginning of our cycle that we're living in now, at least according to the stories. What about our end? What do the ancient people say about that? I want to dive deep into all these stories eventually, but today we're going to take a look at one that might be unfolding before us at this very moment or in the near future. That of the Norse and the story of Fimbulvetr. This one comes to us from the writings of early 13th century historian Snorri Sturluson, in his writings titled the Prose Edda. I'll link to the full text below if you want to check that out. He's specifically copying down oral histories of the Nordic people, which were said to be dictated by the seeress, or vulva, a type of female mystic said to be appointed by Odin himself to reveal hidden knowledge to the humans. In this text, she narrates the events from the creation of the world to its eventual destruction and rebirth in Ragnarok. We don't know the exact origins of this story beyond that, but it most likely was known as far back as the Bronze Age Europe, among the early Germanic, Scandinavian, Celtic, Picts, Scythians, and other Indo-European peoples. And we actually can find a lot of parallels in early religion, mythology, and traditions around the ancient world because of this huge spread of the Indo-European culture. We see this in the Greek, Roman, Hindu, European, Egyptian, even Phoenician and Mesopotamian, and Chinese, and Pacific Islander and Native American. So many parts of this story might have similar details to end-time stories all around the world, and probably had almost exact parallel stories among Bronze Age and early Iron Age European cultures, like the Germanic tribes and Celts, not just the Norse. Anyway, it tells us of a terrifying prediction, a coming ice age of sorts, a long and harsh winter that lasts 3 consecutive years. That's the first sign of the end of the world, or the end of this cycle, the beginning of Ragnarok. The text states, "First will come the winter called Fimbulvetr. Then snow will drive from all directions. There will be great frost and keen winds. The sun will be of no use. There will be 3 such winters in succession without any summer in between. But before that there will happen 3 other winters, such that there will be great battles throughout the world. Brothers will kill brothers for the sake of greed, and none will spare father or son in manslaughter." End quote. So these winters will be preceded by great wars around the world. The winters that follow will also cause conflict and death, most likely over the little amount of food there is left. If even a single season went by where spring, summer, and fall never came, there would be a reduction in population by the millions, possibly even billions. Only the richest and most prepared would survive. And I find it a bit concerning that there are a handful of very smart and powerful individuals that have told us that we might be in for a coming ice age, Elon Musk being the first that comes to mind.
Earth's climate also changes pretty radically over the course of, say, 10,000 years. You can really go down a deep rabbit hole if you read about ice ages, where magnetically where the poles are has shifted over time. Well, we're technically in sort of an ice age right now, although it depends on what you call an ice age. Earth has been extremely tropical, and where it's been a snowball. I don't think it's like the end of the world or anything, but it's gonna cause strife.
And then the countless times politicians, celebrities, and other powerful people have come out and said that we are in for a climate disaster within the next decade or so. It's a bit eerie.
The data are rock solid. I don't think you'll find a scientist that will say we're not in an extinction crisis.
Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
We're at the tipping point. We haven't got time to wait 30 years and argue about a few $1 billion worth. But I was moved to tears by what I saw, and I come back overwhelmed by sadness and empathy for this beautiful thing we call Earth.
And I know what many are thinking. Isn't this impossible because our climate is warming? Well, as many scientists will also tell you, it's not necessarily just warming. I personally am a layman on the subject, but I've read enough to know this is an extremely simplified explanation of what's going on. Yes, we have seen record heat in some places, and certainly there is much warming going on. But whatever is happening to our climate is also causing extremes on both ends of the spectrum. Basically, our climate is getting out of control, and there's a lot of unknowns when trying to predict the outcome. One possibility is that this disruption in our usual climate patterns will eventually cause currents in the ocean to turn off or change. For example, if the North Atlantic gyre slows or changes, which climate scientists say is a real possibility in our near future, it will cause an immediate ice age to take over much of northern Europe and North America. The last time this happened was 12,900 to 11,700 years ago, during the Younger Dryas period. We don't know the full extent of what could happen, but all this changing of our climate could definitely cause a type of ice age. Actually, when scientists first started noticing changes in our climate patterns back in the 70s and 80s, many warned this would eventually lead to a type of cooling or ice age period.
Climate experts believe the next ice age is on its way. According to recent evidence, it could come sooner than anyone had expected. According to some climatologists, within a lifetime, we might be living in the next ice age.
And many don't realize this, but this idea of another ice age or prolonged winter also finds parallels in biblical teachings, as does much of this story of Ragnarok, including the blowing of Heimdall's horn, signaling the beginning of Ragnarok, after the Fimbulvetr, the unbounding of demons and Fenrir from within the earth, the Great War in heaven, or Asgard, and the release of Loki on earth. In the book of Revelation, the very first thing to happen is the 4 horsemen and 6 seals. You've probably heard of these. The fourth being the pale horse, whose rider is death, and he brings war and famine and chaos. But after that happens, the 6th seal is opened. When this happens, it says a great earthquake will strike. It says the stars will fall from heaven, and the sun will be blotted out. Here's a quote from Revelation.
And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal. And lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men and the rich men, and the chief captains and the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains.
If the sun is blotted out, whether from a huge volcanic eruption, large asteroid impact, stars falling from heaven, or nuclear war, then it will cause a volcanic winter or nuclear winter, which can easily last 3 years. Scientists say if it's a large enough eruption, it could be decades before the summers return to many areas. And that's the first sign, according to the ancient Norse. And oddly enough, I found similar stories in both Greek and Aztec of all places. In the Greek, the end of what they call the Bronze Age, not the Bronze Age we refer to when the Greeks were using bronze. These were the different ages when the gods ruled, spoken of by Hesiod. The first was the Golden Age of Kronos and the Titans, then the Silver Age where Zeus ruled, and then the Bronze Age of Zeus, then the Age of Heroes where demigods ruled, and then the Iron Age which we are in today. But when the Bronze Age of Zeus came to an end due to the warlike nature and impiety of man, Zeus sent a prolonged winter to take out the people of this time. And then in Mesoamerican, the Aztec have a story of the ending of a previous age as well. They call this the ending of the 4th sun, which began as a period of great darkness and winter, followed by a catastrophic flood, which destroyed the people, bringing about our age today, the era of the 5th sun. And the Aztecs say the end of the 5th sun will be marked by great earthquakes, just like we read in the book of Revelation. So if you believe these sorts of ancient myths and prophecies, you better start gearing up for a great winter, because the mystics of this old Norse culture believed it was coming soon. They said only after the death of Odin's son, the god Balder, would chaos and destruction be unleashed on the earth, marking the beginning of Ragnarok. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know any of your thoughts in the comment section, and go check out our Patreon for more. See you guys next time.